When I was around 9 years old, me and my family, or at least my immediate family, were afforded the opportunity to not only move to the United States, but to also get on a pathway to become citizens of the United States. And for anybody who has gone through that process, you know it's a ringer. It is just to get on the path is close to impossible, let alone actually becoming a naturalized citizen. And so I was blessed enough to do exactly that. Those next 10 years, I would be naturalized. But far before that, I was already kind of, I guess you would say, ingrained into American culture, into the American way. It's not that I was speaking English for the first time or anything like that. My pops made sure we spoke English, from the day we were born. Likely it was English that was my first language. But I remember I remember having these thoughts that, I was in an incredible country which afforded us so many opportunities, right? Even understanding that there was no promise, no guarantee. I had family members who were sent back home, etc. This ICE thing is not new. Bush was doing it, Obama was doing it, and presidents before that were sending people back to their country of origin in order to do it the correct way if they want to come here. But I remember having this thought that if somebody has been born into this opportunity, into America, why would they hate America? I could not for the life of me understand when I would see these protesters, these so-called activists, and I was a youngin' when I was seeing a lot of this, right? I'm now 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And I'm seeing these individuals who are going on and on about how much they hate America. Even some of the so-called communistic or socialist mentality and ideology was permeating. This was pre-woke, but on our way to woke. This was before BLM, but there was still a lot of the race grievance industry that had, made its way, especially with the Obama administration. A lot of that divisiveness was already being pushed, and not in the way that I was told to believe. They told me that, well, it's racism because it's a black man and they'll never let him be president. They'll never let him have control, etc. But in reality, it was actually the opposite. It was actually the opposite. When this man could stand up there and say things that if any other president said, they would be crucified for it. But nevertheless, I would continue to hear this anti-America rhetoric coming from individuals who had now have categorized or have been categorized as the far left, right? They are the woke activists, the social justice warriors, whatever the hell you want to put on them. These individuals who are benefiting from the American system, the American way of life. They have benefited maybe from generations of this, and yet they have the biggest gripe about it. They are the most at odds with it. And for me, I have no problem if you have issues with anything. It's just that the way my brain is wired, if you have an issue with something, you look to solve that issue. Vanilla Ice, if I got a problem, I solve it. If you have an issue with something, you look to solve it. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, they hate America. Why are they here? It was a genuine question. And it's crazy because that's now become some sort of far right extremist statement to say, if you don't like it here, you can leave. I used to think at some point that was, a racist statement. No, that's never had to do with just race or ethnicity. There are people as pale as the Alps, right? Pure as Tahoe snow. These individuals hate America and they purport to be communists, at least comment section communists and social media socialists, as I like to call them. And I think to myself, okay, if you truly hate America and you are genuinely, communist minded, you are socialist minded, why is it that you have not made your way there? Because when we made our way here, there was a very intentional move. My father made that shift in order for us to have greater opportunities in life. He understood that though there's going to be a dynamic shift, though it's not going to be easy at first, in the long term, we're going to have so many opportunities afforded to us. So to think to myself that one day I will grow up to see that there are individuals who are born into this, who are reaping the benefits of this free market, capitalistic society, which is not perfect, but I believe it is the best experiment that's been run thus far, if you're to compare it to most of the rest of the world. And again, the way I come to that conclusion is because of how many people are looking to break into this country or get into this country as opposed to others, right? There aren't lines of people outside of Cuba. There aren't millions of people looking to break into Venezuela or anything of that nature. I mean, Mexico, there's a reason why Trump had to essentially flex his tariff muscles in order to get Mexico to comply, to take back these immigrants, in order to close off certain sections of the border. Why would you have to fight to send people back who aren't problematic? But yet you still had this rampant hatred for America. And again, for the life of me, I just could not understand it until I realized that, oh, this is nothing more than a symptom of a generation who has been so coddled, who has been so fortunate. It's like the people who complain the most about racism aren't the ones who were there during Jim Crow, aren't the ones who were there during slavery, etc. Those people just cared to be free. They cared to have opportunity. The people who cry most about it are the race-grieved individuals now, are the race hustlers today, when it has never been easier, when you actually have certain benefits as a quote-unquote POC, as a person of color, that those who are not do not have. And if you don't believe that to be true, then we're not living in the same reality. If you don't believe that policies such as DEI are not discriminatory policies towards white folks, towards straight individuals, etc., then you got another thing coming. And so do I, because I'm going to let this little kitty out real quick. And I've even started to observe that the further an individual is from the actual quote-unquote struggle, the more of a grievance that they have. If you go onto a university campus, you're going to see a multitude of quote-unquote progressive activists. Now, of course, these kids have been indoctrinated and brainwashed, etc. That goes without saying. But these individuals are the most fortunate out of their entire peer group. They're on a multi-billion-dollar campus with millions, if not billions of dollars worth of resources at their fingertips, and yet they are throwing the greatest hissy fit. It's the same outside of the campuses. We are the generation of a smartphone. We have the ability to learn anything, to essentially create businesses out of thin air. We can make millions of dollars from the comfort of our own home if we apply ourselves, and yet we are complaining more than our ancestors ever did about their own situation when they really had close to nothing. They had to go to a library and pick up 1,000 books just to know as much as we can within, 3 Hey Siris. Not for real, Siri. Not right now. It broke my heart to come to the realization that the country that has given me so much is hated on the basis of propaganda and virtue signaling. That the people who are born into this, and that's why sometimes there is a bit of an animosity towards, some folks who are born here and are extremely entitled, and those who come from other countries and, legally migrate and things of that nature and have to add to the society and have to create something out of nothing or whatever it may be, don't even speak the language in some cases, etc. That's why there is sometimes this sort of animosity, right? I never really had that, to be honest, because I lost my accent fast, etc. Like I adopted, the culture fast because this is what I was surrounded by. It's all I knew. I was a little kid. So this was just my life. But I came to understand why some individuals who will come from West Africa, whatever it is, you come here with nothing, you build your life up, and you look at other folks who look like you, and you're thinking to yourself, like, what's going on here? And you hear the excuses, but you can't put two and two together because you think to yourself from a logical place, what I came from was a destitute space. A lot of African countries recently got their independence. A lot of, countries around the world recently got independence, or, they are in this socialist hellhole. And they come out of that environment to come into this one, which has been prospering for a very long time, which has some of the best, some of the highest quality of living, or at least opportunities for quality of life, resources afforded to you. I came from a country where if you are homeless, you can't go to just a shelter. There is no soup kitchen. A homeless person here has a greater accessibility to resources than the average person, at least 50% of the population does around the world. That is privilege. That is a blessing. And that's my true message here. It's not to shame these individuals necessarily. It's not to pick on them, as easy as that may be. But instead, it's an observation of, don't you know how blessed you are to have what you have? You know, and somebody, when I put out a message like this on TikTok a while back, they said, well, you know, you can't compare struggles because struggle is struggle wherever you're coming from. And I get that. It's like trauma, right? You know, you grew up in the middle of Bangladesh in like a little ditch in the ground, and you had to build your way up from that. Like, you're going to have a different level of trauma or a different experience of trauma than the person who grew up in, you know, West Hollywood or something like that, or the Hollywood Hills. But trauma is trauma. I understand that. But it doesn't take away from the fact of, why can you not find gratitude in what you have been given? And the given is not a handout. It's not the government giving you something. It's the fact that you're in an ecosystem that allows for you to make yourself what you will. At least at the greatest potential and capacity. I mean, there are European countries. I've spent enough time in Europe to understand this. There are European nations which seem like, you know, these utopias because they have this and this social program. But then you start looking at the taxes. Then you start looking at healthcare. Then you start looking at how that system actually works. Then you start looking at the nuances of a lot of these things. And you would think to yourself, I'd rather take that freedom over there. And these countries here are now trying to adapt those same ways because they understand if they keep going this way, they would never incentivize people to go beyond just these little comfortable spaces. But this country allows you the opportunity, at the very least, the opportunity to make more of your life. So if you truly hated America, you would not be here. You would leave. But I know you don't. I know you're using that, or these individuals are using that as an excuse. They're blaming America as opposed to looking in the damn mirror and seeing what it is that they can fix within their own lives.
I used to be afraid of the dark, a place unknown like a heart in their heart. I used to see my life in the bar. Now the kids unchained, every shackle is lost. 2 steps in the moonlight, 2 step in the daytime. You just know when it feel right. You got a feeling the time's not. See you through those shades that I just threw on. Through my lenses, you just can't do no wrong. I fell in love with myself again. I fell in love with myself. I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 3-6-5, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising.